This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. Today, we have an episode about ancient stones, living landscapes, and the forgotten knowledge of our ancestors. We are going to explore Portugal's megalithic heritage with explorer, filmmaker, and researcher David O'Connor. David, big warm welcome to you.
That's easy enough for you to say. Thanks very much, Justin. How you doing? You okay?
Yeah, very good. Well, it's not warm, right? Where are you at the moment?
I live in Cascais.
Okay, beautiful.
It's not too far from Lisbon, so yeah, all good.
Yeah, nice. So what drew you to Cascais particularly?
Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm Scottish. Yeah, grew up in Scotland. Went to my higher education in Scotland. I lived in London, as a lot of people in the UK do,
Yep.
their careers, and I was in London for nearly 20 years. I moved to Portugal 2019, so I've been in Portugal now for over 7 years now, and yeah, we moved here before COVID and before Brexit buggered everything up for those of us with the British passport, and yeah, we've been here ever since. We lived in Nazaré to start with, in the Silver Coast. So I've got a good pal who lives that way. My wife and I got married in San Martino de Porto in the Silver Coast.
Beautiful.
We lived there. It's beautiful. Not much to do with young kids. And then we came to Cascais one weekend, and I was like, "This place is absolutely amazing."
Nice.
So
and it particularly was for the kids and culture and museums and that kind of thing.
It's a nice blend of kind of being quiet, and then you're kind of half an hour or so into Lisbon. So it was kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great. I mean, I've got 3 kids, and my eldest lives in London. I've got my 2 boys here. My youngest is Portuguese, so he's a wee Portugueser, as I call him.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Born in Lisbon, and my other boy has pretty much lived in Portugal all his life. They both speak Portuguese, which blows my mind, but it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. They go to an international school or the local school?
They're going to a kind of local school come September. It's been kind of international the last 2 or 3 years, but it's a local school they'll be going to.
I recommend it. You know, we it was a bit hit and miss for us. You know, the first school that my team went to, my team is basically half Portuguese, half English, and the first school he went to was a public school, and it was a really nice little school. They'd invested a lot of money, nice teachers, but you know, it was a little bit problematic. There was some characters and families in the local village or town, and they tended to be a little bit. And you know, you don't want your son raised in that kind of environment. So we moved him to another school, and this is a public school, and it's brilliant. You know, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Teachers are wonderful. They're going on trips every week to all over the place, and and he's very happy. He's excited to go to school. He doesn't like holidays so much, so pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's a beautiful thing. I think it's a gift. Again, it's my boy speaking Portuguese. I'm Scottish, so I barely speak English. Never mind Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is the accent? I don't know whether would the accent be harder to get. I guess probably. I don't know. Just the way I don't know, just the way the mouth rolls around vowels and word. You know, I don't know whether it's sort of it's hard. There is the pronouncing the r. You know, the r is super hard for me. Like the rolling of the tongue that like they can do in Andalusia, and you know, and Portugal, and particularly around here in Alentejo, they really they roll the r for much longer than needed. You know, it's like very lyrical. But it's really hard to do. I can't do it. I end up just going like I'm from speaking Arabic or something. I'm like so yeah. So what first sparked your fascination with megalithic sites and ancient landscapes? I mean, how many are in Cascais?
Well, I don't know about Cascais. There's a few in and around Sintra and Leiria. There's hundreds of megaliths across Portugal. I always say I think I was the last person in the world I thought I would be into megaliths. I think the old me would probably give myself a Glasgow kiss and headbutt myself, thinking I was into megaliths, because I'd maybe think it was, I don't know, woo-woo or something like that. But megaliths for me are straight down the line. There's absolutely zero BS with them. They're as authentic as you can get. But it was never on my radar to be into megaliths. I mean, 10 years ago, I stopped drinking. So October this year, it'll be 10 years since I packed in the drink. I lived in London, the city. My background's, I worked in sales, B2B sales for a long time. I have a kind of recruitment business. And then I packed in the drink 10 years ago. 7 and a bit years ago, I moved to Portugal. And I'm very, very grateful for Portugal. Because this feels like the second half of my life. I'm 49 now. I think that first half of my life definitely perhaps more ego driven, and this more soul driven. But definitely grateful to Portugal. And I think coming to Portugal, when I moved to Cascais, we have these forests nearby, kind of in Sintra. It's called Serra de Sintra, and it's I don't know if you've ever been, but it's I don't know. It's like a mashup of
Magical.
Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
Scotland and Jamaica. It's absolutely beautiful. The trees there, I think it was King Ferdinand II. He planted a lot of exotic trees there, so you've got all these beautiful, beautiful trees in the mix with these incredible boulders, moss-covered boulders, which come in all shapes and sizes. That Sintra part, near the coast, the Cava da Roca, you've got a microclimate there, so if you can time it, you get a cloudy, misty day. It's like pure magic and mysticism, and I found myself very drawn to these places, very drawn to nature. I think rather than going out in the pub and getting pissed, as like I probably did in the old me, I was going out to nature. I was spending time on my own in solitude in these trees and forests, and something happened. Something, I don't know. It opened up my senses or something. Again, it sounds a wee bit out there and woo woo, but I think it did. I spent a lot of time out in nature, walking these lands, these forests. See nature as a beautiful thing, as shown a reverence to nature. I think we have a disconnection between the modern day worlds in our houses with double glazing and the actual living world, and really understanding the interconnectedness of all things, seeing how everything's absolutely connected. And that time spent in nature, again, stopping the drinking as well. I think it maybe living in London, in the UK, that city life on the booze numbed my senses in some way. I don't know if I'm making sense or anything so
No,
far.
absolutely.
And then spending time in nature, and that nature led me to megaliths. So it wasn't like I watched a movie or read a book. It was just actually going out there, spending time in nature, feeling connected to nature, that led me to our ancient past. And I think it's the same for our ancient ancestors and megaliths. It's all down to nature, and I can talk about that. But yeah, that kind of put me down a rabbit hole of thinking about our ancient past, starting to visit ancient sites. There's a couple of dolmens in Sintra Way, and then I don't know. It's snowballed into, well, it's a passion that snowballed into an obsession. So it's something else now. I'm comfortable saying that I'm on a quest. Again, it sounds like it's the a Knights Templar, or Knights of the Round Table or something. But I have been on a quest, and that passion, that obsession, is snowballed, whereby I think about it every day. My spare time in the weekends, I'm going to be out megalith hunting, and I've just been on a journey since then. And in 2022. I went to Egypt. I've been to Egypt a few times before, but I went on an ancient technology and metaphysical tour. And on the very first day, some weird things were happening to me. Our tour leader was a lady called Kathleen McGowan. She's the most watched woman on the History Channel.
Okay.
Kathleen, amazing person. She called me the reluctant mystic because of the stuff that was happening to me. And again, I'm not some sort of woo-woo kind of whatever that means. I've kind of straight down the line. and I had a lot of things happening to me. I've got, I've got the photos, for instance. So lots of photographs of me around the Great Pyramid or megaliths where there's beams of light pointing at me or coming from me. Again, it sounds a wee bit out there, but it happened many, many times across that trip in Egypt. Got that nickname, the Reluctant Mystic, and then I've just been on this journey since then, where I'm out seeing megaliths. As I said, I've been to hundreds now across Portugal. Obviously, my motherland in Scotland, spend a lot of time in there, and it's. I'm grateful that I found this passion in life, and I think it's as a result of stopping drinking, leaving London, and then something's opened up in me as a result of being in Portugal.
Yeah. David, it's fully understandable. I mean, if anybody has walked the moors, or if anybody has walked the hills, walked the coastal footpaths of ancient landscapes, and I've always walked these places and imagined what it would have been like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 years ago, to be walking from one place to another, to be looking out to sea, the great highways of the ocean. And I think when you come across rocky outcrops or rocks, or it's a focal point for your mind, a focal point for your vision. It's a landmark for your journey, and I think it just seems to be super understandable that a place which is being constructed from these big rocks, basically these megaliths, they represent something that's so important, and they must have been so important, because why would anybody go to the trouble in those times of moving such huge pieces of rock and putting them upright? So they must have some massive significance, and I think when you're walking, you probably see these things from a distance, and it takes you a long time to get there. So there must be some kind of feeling or emotions that you're going through as you're nearing these landmarks. It's part of your journey. It's a landmark in your journey.
And for me, it's become like a drug, because maybe I have an addictive personality, but I feel super, super present when I'm out in nature, when I'm at megaliths. It's, I've got young kids, you feel very present. I'm getting a bit old now, but I love boxing and sparring, and I love to scrap, basically. And that is, for me, a great way of feeling present. But and it's similar when I'm out at megaliths, I feel it's almost like a superpower. It's hard to put into words. Sometimes I feel like time stops still, or it bends, or it suspends, and that is part of the appeal for me. Is just being out there on the land in that solitude. I mean, I do tours and stuff, so I take people around. But when I'm out on my own, just that real feeling of being present, whether that's a dolmen or a cave, or if I'm deep underground in a cave where it's not natural to be there. You got that fight or flight thing. Maybe it's a test or something for me, but you just become fully aware of your body and mind, and that's again part of the appeal for me. I'm going off on a tangent here, but
no, it's great. And so through your field research, and sort of, is there common patterns that you've noticed repeatedly across sort of megalithic landscapes?
there is. So I guess one thing I should add is, since I've been on this journey, I started a platform. It's called Reppin Nature. So I have a platform across the socials, Reppin Nature. I share my experiences. I do tours and all the rest of it. When I first started out, I was very open-minded in terms of megaliths, their purpose. You know, you'll see everything nowadays. It's everyone's debunking each other. It's about archaeology or the mainstream, or it's the alternative pseudo archaeologists. Everybody loves a bit of debunking, and I've always been very open minded. But after going out to hundreds of megaliths, I've kind of come up with my own framework. And for me, I see repeated patterns and observations. and that's kind of came up with this framework. I call it Earth-centric technology. So for megaliths, for me, we tend to think of them as places of ritual, or for astronomical calendars, or tombs, or places for death. So we tend to think, what do they mean? What do they represent? Rather than, okay, what did they do, or what problem did they solve? And I think you might have touched upon this briefly. One thing I do when I go to megaliths, I really try and think through that Neolithic mindset. So for me back then, I don't think these people had the luxury or the cushion to think, okay, I'm going to build a massive big dolmen or stone circle just to honor something. I think it was life or death decisions. And back then, you know, across the world, certainly across Europe, it was about food, water, and shelter. With, for me, water being the primary most significant. Commodity. 2 or 3 days without clean drinking water, it's good night Vienna, you're a goner. So I think water is really key to these megaliths, and I can certainly talk about water with Portugal, and I've talked about this in the past, the difference between Portugal and Scotland. Some of the megaliths, I've noted some observations. So I think these people, the primary goal was survival. So I see megaliths, and I call it Earth-centric technology. I see megaliths as practical, functional systems working with the earth and nature. So through the use of stone, they've selected a very specific stone. Through the use of light, lunar cycles, through the use of water, sound, the landscape itself, to ultimately create a place or a space which is designed for life. Basically, it's designed for survival, well-being, the continuation of life, and it's not designed to mourn death or for symbolic reasons. Because these people, for me, were very grounded to the planet, and they were very pragmatic. And as I said, I don't think they had that luxury just to build a massive, big dolmen for superstitious or symbolic reasons. I think it was like, okay, we need to live. Therefore, we're going to put this extreme efforts. And you mentioned the size of the stones. I mean, these are monumental structures. And thinking 5,000 years ago, or they could well be older, they've gone to really, really extreme efforts. You know what I mean? To construct these monuments. So for me, they're almost practical, functional systems, almost like infrastructure rather than a temple.
Yeah, I think I'm getting your point there, because we still almost do it today. So if you imagine that you're saying that, these stones could have more relevance to natural resources, or at least protecting natural resources, perhaps. Maybe they're making these structures as a symbol of power and a symbol of dominance and a symbol of, like, okay, we have the natural resources here. And these symbols are like, stay away or come with peace and we can trade. We have these symbols today. We build cities of trade and industry, and we build skyscrapers. In some ways, the human mind doesn't change. I still think sometimes, like, you're building a trade tower, for example, and it's saying the same thing. Here we have power. We also offer trade. We offer community and work, and we trade here resources. And I don't, like you say, I think it's probably more likely to be that. But then, in saying that same argument, you could say, well, people build cathedrals.
Today, the biggest structures we build today are dams.
Dams. Yeah.
Are dams. So the biggest structures we build today is infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's not changed in 5,000 years.
Yeah. But we have had a little interim in many respects, in terms of the great Gothic cathedrals, and the starting building those in 12th, 11th century or whenever. And I guess they were sort of symbols of, I suppose they were symbols of power, a symbol of community, a symbol of dominance in many respects, and of houses of knowledge, and many monks were the only people to write. and to know how to read and to foster and keep knowledge away from the people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
just
interesting.
based on my experience and going out there, I don't think they build monuments simply to honor things. I think it was these are systems working with nature and enhancing that landscape to get a return, basically,
Yeah.
and ultimately it's life or death. Again, my framework I apply to the pyramids as well. I mean, the pyramids is a is a whole can of worms, but again they've gone to extreme efforts. I've been into the Great Pyramid a few times. I've been into all the chambers, and again, I think it's connected with water with the pyramids. It's life or death. It was famine or flooding. So not not enough water, then it was death and drought, and then too much water, obviously, affect crops and what have you.
So,
So
so
again, for
these
the pyramids, for me,
so
I
these
see it as
societies
infrastructure.
are agricultural societies. You're saying so the builders and the founders of these structures, like in Egypt, I guess, where the Nile was fertile. It
Yeah.
perhaps was some of the early developers of agriculture, or at least in that area. Um, and is that the same with most of the megaliths in Iberian Peninsula and Scotland? Do we know if they're being constructed during a period of agricultural, or were they sort of hunter gatherers?
Well, the ages of these megaliths, I mean, it is kind of like your finger and put it in the air a wee bit because you can't carbon date stone. So generally speaking, the megaliths are thought to be kind of 5,000 years old. I mean, everything is pretty much quoted as being 5,000 years old.
Mm.
I mean, I don't really get too caught up if they could be older because they could well be, because that's based on you can't carbon date the stone. But Portugal's really interesting.
Well, how do they put
And
that
again,
date?
maybe
How do they put the date 5,000 years old?
based on animal or human remains found
Uh,
at or nearby a site,
okay,
basically.
in a certain level of the dig or the ground, I suppose.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So it is we don't know for certain. I mean, even again, I'm not anti-archaeology or whatever, but even to say, a dolmen is a place of death or a tomb is still an interpretation which has been assumed is fact.
Yeah.
It's still a theory. So it's all up for discussion. And again, with my Earth-centric technology, I'm not saying I know the answers, but I'm just sharing my observations, my experiences, but hopefully with a bit of humility, because unless you go back in time, nobody knows exactly. But Portugal is super interesting, and I've been to hundreds of sites across Portugal. And I mean, the beauty of Portugal is the megaliths here are raw in the sense that they're kind of untouched. I guess it's also a bad thing because I don't think the authorities in Portugal really care actually in terms of preserving the sites here. But again, that's another conversation. But the dominant megalithic form in Portugal are dolmens, which is super interesting for me. I mean, I've maybe been to 200, 300 dolmens in Portugal. I've been to a fair few, but I don't think I've even scratched the surface. And I don't know if actually, I mean, I've looked if there's any count or if there's any research done on how many dolmens there are. I don't think anybody in Portugal actually knows. So for me, there's probably maybe 1,000, if not more, dolmens in Portugal.
So what defines the dolmen? Why would it be called a dolmen as opposed to a
A
mega?
dolmen, it's kind of like the numerical pi symbol where you've got two upright, well, it's usually seven upright orthostats with a massive capstone. So it's like a
Okay, like a
kind of
door frame
table.
kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's that kind of contained space and chamber. So the dominant megalithic form in Portugal, for whatever reason, is dolmens, and yet Portugal has Almendris Cromlech. It has the oldest stone circle in Europe, which is I don't know 8,000 years old, which is absolutely bonkers. But interestingly, in Portugal, you get hundreds of dolmens, but you've maybe got a dozen stone circles, or cromlechs as we call them in Portugal. But then you go to Scotland and you've got the polar opposite. You've got like 500 stone circles. And I've got my own theory in that. You've got like 500 stone circles across the British Isles. I think there's like 1,200 stone circles known or left. Scotland has the most with 500. But then in Portugal, you've got like a dozen, if not less. Did you see what I mean? There's a real contrast there, which this is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night. But you've got hundreds of dolmens in Portugal, and again, Iberia and Spain, you've got loads of dolmens as well. In Scotland, we call them cairns, so there's a slightly different design, but it's the same kind of principle, that contained, compact space and environment. But I think really, I mean, my own theory is the big difference with Scotland in Portugal is the water sources, basically. So Scotland is, and this is why I think with all my research, it comes back to water. Scotland is one of the most, I don't know, water. It's got the most water dense across Europe. You know, lochs and wetlands, and right across the board. Portugal's a lot different, so it's more seasonal. It's tied to rivers. There's valleys. Long dry periods. So there's less water sources than Scotland. So that's kind of my idea, that it's connected to water. Why there's so few stone circles and so many in Scotland, and I think these stone circles are to do with water. I keep talking about water all the time, but I think that is the primary, most precious commodity to ancient man and women thousands of years ago.
Has there been research? Has there been like a mapping of where these sites are in relation to water sources or lack of water?
Probably more, I think, in terms of in Scotland, there has been research on that. But again, in the style is slightly different in Portugal. Again, we call them cromlechs, so they're not what you typically class as a circle per se. They're horseshoe shaped, or it's kind of, there's stones coming across rather than a kind of pure circle as such. So there is, again, that difference in terms of that design. But again, Portugal has one of the oldest in Europe. Multiple rabbit holes with this thing. That's the thing I found, this passion in life, where it's unlikely I'll ever get any answers. So it's
you know what it is, because it is, I mean, they are so fascinating, and they do probably raise more questions than we perhaps have evidence to give answers to. And so perhaps we should experience these. There's a guy that I've interviewed, another guy who was talking about megaliths, a chap called Freddie Silva.
And he's Portuguese, I think.
He's Portuguese, but he lives in the east coast of the US. He's got some interesting theories on. He's a little bit more mystical and a little bit more spiritual in the importance of these stone structures. He believes like you can feel energies and vibrations and all these kind of things too. So I think, like, because there is no wrong or right answer. There is evidence, but of certain things, but it's very difficult. It's so old, and it's such a long. It only takes one person to bury some animal bones underneath one of the stones to ruin all of any type of dating, right? Archaeological dating. So I mean, I think maybe we should be approaching them with like as you're approaching them in some ways. Is how do they make us feel? Perhaps that connection is going to let's put ourselves in ancient man's shoes, and how do they make us feel? And perhaps it's nearer than we could get to than with just purely scientific.
That's what I always do when I go out. I try and think through those prehistoric eyes, or that Neolithic mindset. And the great thing about going to places in Scotland or Portugal is the landscape. I mean, maybe the temperature has changed, or the water levels have changed, but the landscape, generally speaking, is the same. It's not like when you go to Egypt and you go to you go to the Great Sphinx and you could see McDonald's like in front of you. You know what I mean? You've got Cairo there, Portugal, Scotland, beautiful raw landscape, which probably hasn't changed for that millennia. So maybe it's easier to think through that mindset, and that's what I always do is think, okay, what were these people thinking? And again, if say it's 5,000 years ago, which in the scheme of things feels like a long time, but if you think a generation is 25 years, it's only 200 generations ago.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
Again, it's a long time, but that makes it a wee bit more compact. And for me, we haven't changed biologically in that time, but what has changed for me, I'm pretty certain on, is our connection with the planet, our connection with nature. And these people, I think, were very grounded, very connected with the land. You imagine if you lived your whole life wearing no shoes, you're grounded, you're connected with the earth. And I really think we need to look at the indigenous peoples of the planet in terms of that connection. But that's what I think these people had. They had a true connection with the land. They felt the earth. And what we would now deem as magic or superpowers, I think, is basically just being fully present and connected with the earth. Do you see what I mean? I think that's what these people had. So again, the sci-fi minded world we live in of it's ancient technology, it's lasers, it's aliens, it's Anunnaki, it's giants, it's folklore, it's legend, it's this and that. I think this is a modern mindset to look back on our ancient past, but I think these people were, the magic for me is nature. That's what we're missing today.
Yeah.
And I think that's what these people had. They had that connection.
Yeah, perhaps they didn't apply anything on it, and they didn't project any of. They probably didn't have anything to project on it. They just literally had feeling. They didn't have a projection of it's comes from outer space, or it's this, or it's that, or they probably didn't have an answer to it, and maybe they were comfortable with having no answer. It was mystical. It was like awe-inspiring, and that's where it ended. I believe, like, if you're living in those times, picturing it. You've got massive distances that you may travel. There was probably the coastlines and the rivers were probably the highways of trade and travel. And I think, and I think they were probably very practical. They were probably thinking about the winter. They were probably thinking about storing enough food. They're probably thinking about whether the neighbors are going to come and raid them. And I don't think they probably had the time for too much fantasy. I think they probably had the awareness and the feeling of nature, but I don't think they applied any story to it because I don't think they had time.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That that luxury to honor the dead or something like that. It was like, okay,
Fantasize,
life or death. We need to crack on here. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And do you think the sort of modern archaeology sometimes overlooks experiential aspects of these landscapes?
Quite possibly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I probably didn't give myself enough credit when I first started out because I would see a researcher as perhaps someone analytical. I mean, I'm academic in the sense I went to university, but I'm probably more street smart than book smart. But when I first started out, maybe not to see what I do as research, but I do know it is now, and I understand that. So I think there's definitely a place for the analytical, the archaeologically minded, but also what I do. So my approach is very experiential. It's reflexive. It's observational. That phenomenology to you'll only get that from going out there and seeing the land and experiencing things. I'll give you an example. I was in Dumfries and Galloway in Scotland a couple of months ago. There's a site there called Cairnholy, and there's a guy who lives locally. He's called Joe, and he's lived there for American guy actually. He's lived there for many, many years, and he came up to me. We started talking, but he knows things. He's seen things. Not like seen things, but he's noticed and witnessed and observed patterns, alignments, shapes of the stones, this or that. But that's only come from going out there every day or every other day. Do you see what I mean? So I think this this kind of observational, this reflexive approach is as important as a kind of analytically minded. Maybe it's that left brain, right brain thing, but that's my approach. Is that kind of reflexive, experiential approach to visiting these sites and sharing my experiences and my interpretation.
David, I think the audience is gonna, I think it's such a potential in Portugal to be experiencing these great historical sites, and perhaps, with you bringing and drawing attention on these areas, that the Portuguese government, local cameras, and fundings, because there is fundings available, I think, will start to help preserve, or at least preserve the nature around, and give conscientious access to these places which are so important.
I'll give you one example. It's called the Great Dolmen of Zambijero. It's in Alentejo, Évora. It's the largest dolmen in Portugal. This is it's a beautiful work of art. This, for me, as a lover of dolmens, but this is absolutely massive. But it's decaying. It's been left. The archaeologists or the authorities, they put this old creaky, bloody corrugated roof over it in the 1980s, which actually does more damage than good. And it's quite sad to see this. Our ancient ancestors gone to this extreme efforts, and there's no love or care to this. As I said, I don't think the authorities in Portugal really give any attention to this whatsoever. So
it's probably being turned into a sheep shelter. It's what happens a lot of the time. No, we need to bring more attention to these things. And how can we do that? You have your website, and you have your Instagram. No, sorry, you don't have Instagram, I noticed, but you have Facebook, TikTok, YouTube channel, and it's Reppin Nature, right? So it's REPPIN and then like an apostrophe and nature.
So the handle, as the kids call it, is reppin.nature, REPPIN.nature. So I hate social media with a passion, but I'm on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok's there. But yeah, YouTube and Facebook. My website is reppinnature.com, REPPINNATURE, reppinnature.com. And yeah, people can sign up to my mailing list, and I offer kind of group tours of Portugal and Scotland, but I also do kind of private, bespoke tours of Portugal, day tours or multi-day tours, whether someone's already in Portugal or they're coming to Portugal. And it actually amazes me. I meet a lot of expats. I tell them this passion I've got. I tell them about megaliths in Portugal, and they actually don't even know about it or even know that it's a thing, because I think Portugal, it's almost like up there with Brittany and France and Scotland. Is Portugal for me is one of the centres of megaliths across Europe. We're spoilt for choice. It's a gold mine of ancient treasures we've got in Portugal, and I feel very connected to the land here. Maybe it's an ancient Celt or something, and we've got that connection with the Scots and the
There was definitely
Portuguese,
some in the Alentejo region here. There's definitely a lot of Celtic influences. It's kind of survived in many parts through the music. In the music here, there is a lot of similarities in tones and musical qualities with Celtic music, and drums and things like that. Some interesting celebrations that happen around here. But this area where I am was Celtic. I think the area has probably shifted over time, and there was a lot of more Mediterranean groups living in the south. But yeah, it's fascinating. If you look at the migration of peoples into the Iberian Peninsula, it is just fascinating. Who was the tribe or the culture or the groups of people that erected these stones is always fascinating to me.
We don't know, but there's been people coming to Portugal long before Portugal was even named Portugal. The Knights Templar, the Arabs, the Moors, the Lusitanians, and then way back before that, but even before we even thinking about this being called Portugal, one of my favourite places actually in Portugal is Monsanto. I don't know if you've ever been central Portugal.
Yeah.
You've got the Knights Templar Fortress. You've got these incredible boulders, but that's a great example of Knights Templar, the Arabs, the Moors, the Lusitanians. These people have come and gone over the hundreds of years.
Various Germanic and Visigothic tribes as well.
Exactly. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So
have you been to Almoral? Almoral, the Knights Templar?
I was there a couple of weeks ago, actually.
That's cool. Did you take that little boat to the? Did you take that little boat? That lady
did, out to the castle. Yeah, it's quite something. And went to the Convent of Christ as well. That's breathtakingly beautiful.
It's great stuff.
A bit too modern for my liking.
But perhaps it was built on top of a ancient stone, though. You would imagine, right? A castle.
That's it. These places are temples built upon temples, built upon temples. That's the same with Egypt, as I've learned. Just layers of people coming and going and building on top of somewhere very sacred or energetic or whatever.
Yeah, it's the way we are. It's very interesting. Well, cool, man. It's really nice to talk to you, and I love it when I have somebody come on here and they have so much passion and such a life-changing passion for you as well. And I'm happy that you found it. And Portugal often does that to people. I don't know whether it's Portugal or whether it's the nature or who knows. Maybe it's different for different people. So. Anyway, thanks, man. Awesome. Nice to talk to you. And I'll make sure I'll drop all those links in the show notes and the show summary, which goes out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, and a little bit to YouTube. We don't have much people listening to podcasts on YouTube. So that's where you can find the links to find out more about what David does. Book a trip with him and experience and make up your own mind of how you feel, and try to picture yourself as ancient man or woman or even ancient child. That's very cool. All right, David, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Justin. Cheers, man. Ciao. Take care.
This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. Voices of Portugal, stories for the world. Out. Makes me want to build a fusion reactor, starting just with the basic switch, connecting poles and energy. Mom says focus on geography, all the things I can learn with that machine. I need some fuel, I need a monster now. I'm the last to come, the cloud won't you stop?